All right, we need to make sure that we've got that done. Hey Dave, I'll be with you in a sec, guys. Just organising the YouTube side. Just give me 1 minute and we'll have a chat soon. Just got to make sure YouTube folks can have a chat to us on. Thanks for those comments, Dave. Thank you. Alrighty. G'day folks, my name's Chris Nitzo. Welcome to a Weather IQ live stream. We do these every couple of nights, so we've got one coming on Monday night as well. That one I think will be probably more interesting because by that stage we would have seen the low develop. Obviously a lot of you here are for the North Queensland. Jen, you don't miss much, do you, Jen? Yes, I did get a haircut. I've been getting roasted for my hair, so I had to get a haircut. What we do here is I have a chat about some of the relevant topics for the time being, and the first one is going to be a very, very short one about another cyclone off WA. And then we're going to go straight into the North Queensland rainfall for the next couple of days while that low's putting himself together. And then we're going to talk specifically about that low and what that low is going to do. We thank our major sponsor on the top left there on your screen, Fair Income Builds. I forgot to give them a plug the last time. I'm sorry, Zeke and the boys. They generously sponsor us. They have done now for many, many years, and we thank them for their sponsorship. And don't forget, folks, we are fully self-funded, so that means that without your support, buying subscriptions with us, we don't exist. So if you go to that website on the top right there, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe, and have a look at our subscription options there. It starts at $32.95 a year, doesn't break the bank, and you get access to all of our forecasts. For example, today we did, how many forecasts we do today? 1, 2, I forget because I do so many. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 forecasts today for all various areas. Most of these ones were for Queensland, except for that first one up there where we discussed what we're discussing now. All right. Let's get stuck into it, eh? Let's start with that stuff I talked about here, about the Cocos Islands. So there's another low pressure system here. These poor buggers have just seen a cyclone just only a week ago, 2 weeks ago. They just had a cyclone. They're about to get another one. Hopefully at this point in time, though, we're probably not going to see the system intensify too much by the time it gets to the Cocos. So there's the Cocos right there. And we can see there that the system sort of passes by them around about Monday afternoon, Monday evening. And fingers crossed that they don't get hit too hard. That system should then intensify and will likely be called Cyclone Jenna. I know there's been some rubbish online about the Queensland system being called Jenna. I think this one will beat it, and so it'll be called Jenna. And whatever the K name is, I haven't had a look at the name, so I don't know what the next K name is. But Jenna should be this one because we're sort of seeing this one developing by, say, Tuesday or Wednesday, potentially, and then pushing out of the Australian region after that. So for those that think Jenna's going to be the name of the Queensland one, no, that won't be the case unless the Queensland one rapidly intensifies, which we really don't expect. All right. So that's enough of that one, but I just thought we'd start with something on the other side of Australia before we get stuck into the stuff that we all want to know about. Just because sometimes these go unnoticed, but they're important cyclones as well. And this, by the way, will be Australia's 6th tropical cyclone of the season if and when it develops through Monday or Tuesday. All right, and by the way, all 6 of those have affected WA or WA waters. So every one of those 6, even Fina ended up making landfall in WA, its final landfall. All right, let's go over to the east now and let's have a chat about this northeast Queensland area. This has been a bit of a problem area for us because what we're continuously seeing off the east coast, which is making life extremely difficult, are these storms coming off the north tropical coastline. And as they come off the coastline, they begin to rotate. And as they rotate, they take a lot of the rain offshore with them. And so the last 2 nights, we've seen evidence of this, where the rainfall has developed and has been taken offshore. 2 nights ago, we spoke about it. Remember when the bomb had us on a severe weather warning that night? And I said, no, it doesn't look likely because of that. And then last night, we had a beautiful convergence line that developed in Ingham, around between Cardwell and Ingham. Ingham copped 150 plus millimetres through that region. Rolling Stone copped 100. And then suddenly, we developed a little rotational area around Palm Island, and it just almost absorbed all the rainfall and kept it out to sea by the time it got to Townsville. There were some Townsville suburbs that got some very lucky rainfall out of that, up to about 50 to 100 mils in a couple of suburbs, particularly on Maggie Island. I think we got some really good rain there in a few places, but really it was a bit of a disappointment. So what are we expecting today? Well, same sort of thing, but we're hoping that this time, if there is any rotation that develops off the coastline, that because of the change in flow, the flow has been very different today compared to yesterday. And so this west to east motion of these storms, as they push further southwards, may then come back towards the coast. If something rotates in this area again, there's a great chance that this time that rotation will pull the rain into the coast as opposed to take the rain away from the coast. So that's what we'll be looking for through this region overnight tonight, early tomorrow. And then we'll be looking for the same thing tomorrow night, but on a larger scale, because tomorrow night we're anticipating the actual development of the low, right? And that low is going to be the dominant player in our weather for the next week or so. All right, so tonight we're still looking for those little tiny rotational areas, but this time, rather than taking the rain away from us, we're looking at them to potentially bring the rain into us. All right, so without them, we're probably just going to see another day of moderate rain. If we get one of them, we might see some very heavy rainfall development over the course of the next 12 hours or so through the overnight, early morning period. Once again, our target areas are Tully to Ayr, with the potential real focus around the Ingham Rolling Stone region. So just north of Townsville is where we'd be anticipating the heaviest of that rain, which has been the case now for pretty much the entire time. Just north of Townsville, just north of Townsville, just north of Townsville. Same thing tonight, just north of Townsville. But that doesn't mean that Townsville's out. That's why we've got Tully to Ayr, all right? That's why we've got that range, because those systems can be a little bit finicky. They might move a touch north, they might move a touch south. So that's the expectation. Let's have a look here at the high-res modelling for the area. You can see that it is suggesting over the next 36 hours we're going to see some pretty heavy falls around that northeast coast. And once again, that same area, Cardwell to Ayr, is the focus. Now, not every one of these is going to fire, all right, but a couple of them probably will. The dynamics today that are in play tonight and tomorrow night suggest that there will be some good potential through this area for heavy rainfall. So we've got this afternoon, this evening, those big storms coming off the Cairns area and through Innisfail Tully. And the expectation overnight tonight is the possibility, starting over the next couple of hours, of starting to see some showers on the coastline further south of there. And then you can see this convergence zone coming onto the coast north of Townsville at some stage tonight. The model's probably a bit aggressive here in the development of this, but it makes sense that we would see something between Ingham and Townsville overnight tonight developing in this area. Once again, why does it make sense? Well, let's have a look at the radar of what's going on right now. So what we can see here through the Townsville district is an easterly flow. What we can see through the Cardwell area is a westerly flow. And what we can see north of Cardwell is a clear westerly flow. Here at the moment is where our convergence is, where the northeasterlies and westerlies take shape. And when we take a look at our deep layer steering flow, what we're going to find, I'm just going to use a little bit of a rougher model here rather than the high res because it gets a little bit tricky. But what we're going to find here is that this westerly flow that's currently in operation across that Innisfail area, that's going to start to shift, and we're going to start to see this northeasterly flow pattern. So all this heavy rain around Innisfail is going to start to duck southwestwards from that area down towards this region of the Rolling Stone Ingham area. And then the possibility of that easterly flow coming in and this stuff moving southwards or southwestwards, resulting in that major convergence area through the Ingham region potentially later tonight into early tomorrow. As we look at tomorrow's flow pattern, you can see same sort of thing here, westerly across the Cairns district through to Tully, and then we come down into the Townsville district and you can see the northeasterly curving back into the Townsville-Ingham coastline. So this is once again a real potent setup for potential heavy rainfall. Just like it has been the last couple of days, the problem the last couple of days, as I say, we've had these little eddies that have been pushing offshore. All right, so with this flow, especially tomorrow night, there's a chance that if any eddies do develop tomorrow, especially tomorrow, that they'll push into the coastline. So that's what we're looking for tomorrow. Those little eddies might work for us tomorrow to bring heavy rain. So far, they've been working against us and taking that rainfall away. So this is the expectation. When it comes to rainfall, we're probably looking at heavy falls today coming off the coast of that Innisfail-Tully area, and then a convergence zone beginning to develop between Tully and Rolling Stone. That convergence zone then will likely push into this area between Cardwell and Townsville, push southwestwards because of that change in flow pattern. See the curvature of the flow to bring that back into us later on in the night time. Right, so as we go into tomorrow morning, we anticipate quite heavy rainfall between Ingham and Townsville, once again dependent on whether or not we get those little eddies. And then as we continue on, we can see through the day, the convergence zones tend to weaken a little bit in the afternoons. That's just the way it goes. In the coastline, we tend to be most unstable overnight, early in the morning. Our best rainfall on the coast tends to happen in that most unstable period. And then usually in the afternoon, things stabilise a little. So even with the convergence, we may not necessarily get as much heavy rainfall through the district, but there's still potential there, anywhere from about Hinchinbrook Island southwards. You'll notice there up north, around Cairns, Mareeba, Atherton, Innisfail, more of those storms coming onto the coast. So more of that westerly flow there, driving storms onto the coast, just like it did today. And you can see down here around Airholme Hill, these areas should see easterly flows. So westerly flow up here, easterly flow here. So these ones are showers, these ones are thunderstorms, and these ones are rain. All right, there's a big difference there. Thunderstorms can provide patchy falls, but very, very heavy falls. Showers usually just provide us with general lighter falls, and then the rain sort of gives us a bit of a taste of both. All right, so if you're not getting heavy rain at the time, you're getting light drizzly rain. All right, but there's also a chance for thunderstorms embedded in the rain. So that's this area here. All right, as we continue into Sunday evening, we've got widespread rain and thunderstorm activity through far north Queensland. Now we're starting to develop a weak circulation. I'll show you what that looks like on the ground shortly. But understand here that we're looking at fairly heavy rain between about Tully and Townsville, with a focal point around the Ingham area, around that Hinchinbrook region. That's our real focus at the moment for the next 24 to 48 hours, is that Hinchinbrook area. Expecting to see some very heavy falls of rain through there. Sorry, Ingham folks, I know you've had a gutful of it, but it's almost over. After Monday, or after Sunday night, Monday morning, we see probably the heaviest rain that we're going to see. And at this stage, we're likely to see that north of Townsville, up around the Ingham, Cardwell, Tully region. This is where our low first gets off the coastline on Sunday night, Monday morning. As that low gets off the coastline, there'll be a period of very, very heavy rainfall. All right, because this low is going to create very strong convergence at the surface, especially on its southern side as it comes off. Now, as it pushes off the coast, we're then going to see the heavy rain exit the coast. Now, there's a little bit of doubt about how this part will operate. Some of the models want to keep the low close to the coast and moving northwards for that first day, that Monday period, before Tuesday they move the low eastwards. In this particular model, it sort of wants to take the low and push it northeast straight away. I'm sort of leaning more towards maybe a bit more of a northward shift first, and then an eastward shift. So there's a chance there that we continue to maintain some heavy rainfall on Monday for areas north of Ingham, and we start to fine up the coastline further south. And that starts from as early as Monday morning, but probably by Monday afternoon, this region south of Ingham will have fined up. As in, it's not going to be fine and sunny, but it's just not, we're not going to see too much shower activity anymore. We'll just see a few southeasterly stream showers. There is a chance, though, if the low just moves a touch further north, that heavier rainfall may nudge Innisfail and potentially Babinda and those areas just north here in the northern part of the region, right? So as the system then continues, we do expect on Tuesday that the system will move offshore. The other thing you've got to remember here is that further north, if we go up to Cairns, we're going to maintain that shower and thunderstorm activity if we're north of the low. So the low is going to be out here off the coast of Innisfail come Monday afternoon, or off the coast of Tully, Innisfail Monday afternoon. That means these areas northwest of the tablelands are going to continue to see those strong showers and thunderstorms coming onto the coast with possible heavy rain. Further south, we're going to move back to shower activity. All right, so that's the difference there in the types of weather we're experiencing north of the low and the type of weather south of the low. That humid, hot airstream that you've been having, that's gone once you're south of the low because you're getting the southeasterlies. All right, so that's the expectation at the moment with the low. So the low initially forms somewhere between Tully and Townsville, gets off the coast. The moment it gets off the coast, that period is a period of very, very heavy rain, and then we're moving that low to the north and then east away from the coast. And therein lies our next discussion, right? How far east do we move the low? Because the further east we move the low, the more we have a cyclone threat. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the low and what it should do. Now, what this low should do depends on how far off the coast it gets. And I'll give you an example of what I mean here. So I'm just going to track these ones here, where the low has basically moved north and it hasn't moved east. So all these dots, by the way, are where the low should be located on Thursday at 4 p.m. You can see that we've got a relatively tight clustering of dots. Now, some of you that don't know much about weather and this is the first time you're seeing this stuff, you're going to go, no way, that's way different. No, there's no sign that there's agreement. But for us, that's very good agreement, all right? So for us, that's extremely good agreement when the dots are that well clustered. So what I want to draw your attention to is these dots really close to the coast. These ones never really got far off the coastline. So in these ones, the majority of them have the system coming back at the coast and hitting the coast out here around Cape Melville to Cooktown. And they do so as just very, very weak lows with, 20 to 25 knot winds. The reason they do that is because the system was so close to the coast, it didn't have time and space to develop. And so the expectation at this point is that... have we lost YouTube again? Hang on, give me a second. We have to. Bloody hell. They still haven't got back to me on YouTube about why that keeps happening. All right, I'll have to post this again on YouTube and the final cut of it anyway. Right, so so if we get a low that stays very close to the coast, we don't have a situation where the low can really intensify. I want to draw your attention to some of these ones, some of these dots further out to sea, because these dots are the more interesting ones. These dots, which is the majority of them, tend to reflect a situation where we see a system that has more potential to deepen. All right, the system has more time, more space to deepen. And so in this scenario, we have a system that ranges from a tropical low to a category 2 tropical cyclone as it comes towards the coast. In this scenario, the system has more time over water. Because it has more time over water in a pretty friendly environment, the cyclone environment here is going to be pretty good, and we'll talk about what the environment means shortly. But the idea would be that the system is going to move in a pretty similar direction and you can see making landfall there between Cape Melville and as far south as Townsville. So that's a large area of difference, right? And a lot of it will come down to how well the systems get structured. If the systems are fairly loosey-goosey low, the system will likely stay far to the north. So we'll probably see a system crossing the coast, Cooktown northwards. If the system begins to tighten up, there's a chance there that it gets driven by some different layers of winds. And those winds are likely to drop the system more in a southwest direction. And so these ones now start to become a bit more concerning. All right, so as we start to move into Saturday and Sunday, so by the way, landfall up here would be Friday. Down here around Cape Trib, Cairns would likely be Saturday. And down here, if it got as far south as Townsville, which is on the outer edge of the error margins, it would take until Sunday to get there. All right, so just understand though, the longer we give it time and space, the more likely it is to pull itself together. That's a key understanding here, all right? It's going to be time and space. How much time, how much space does this thing have? Less time space, no development. More time space, more development. All right, so very important. So going back to these charts, it's going to be really important to know, does the system move in a northerly direction? So northerly direction once it gets off the coast, or does it move in an easterly direction once it gets off the coast? Because if it can move in that direction, we're going to give it some time and space. If we give it time and space, I mentioned that the environment's good. What do cyclones need for the environment? They need warm water. We've got warm water. There's no point even checking that. All right, we don't need to check that. What else do cyclones need? They need fairly low levels of vertical wind shear. All right, let's have a look at what our winds are doing in the general atmosphere here. So the system is going to be, I'm just going to move us a little bit closer to Queensland there because the system's not that far out. Right, so what we've got here is what looks to be, as we move into Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, a reasonable environment here, because what we're seeing is that we've got this really strong wind shear to the south of the cyclone, south of Willis Island, and we've got moderate shear to the north of the cyclone. But very importantly, what you see are the arrows. The arrows are moving in opposite directions here. So these arrows are moving like that, and these arrows are moving like that. Okay, so what that tells us is that we've got a very highly divergent atmosphere there. And that makes sense because we're right along the monsoon trough. So that means that the cyclone has a really nice upper level environment to get rid of all of its deep convective waste products. So all that high cloud that can clutter the storm and clutter the storms and create a situation where we don't have an exhaust and the system basically chokes on its own waste products. We don't have that scenario here. So the system should be producing very strong and deep convection. At the surface, what we've got, so that's looking at the upper levels. At the surface, what we've got is a real interesting dynamic between a strengthening southeasterly and a strengthening northwesterly. And this can be a double-edged sword. Because this is such a strong environment that the system's going to find itself in, it's going to be very difficult for the cyclone to try, or the low at this stage, to try and concentrate all of those big storms around the centre. If the low has got such a strong strong forcing mechanism from the north and strong forcing mechanism from the south, it creates a lot of spin, which helps the low, but it also creates a lot of storms on the outer edges of the low. And that's going to make life difficult for a cyclone that's trying to get itself together. For a cyclone to get itself together, it needs to be creating those storms very close to the centre. In this scenario, what we're seeing evidence of is that this system is going to be creating storms hundreds of kilometres away from its centre. All right, and it's going to find it very difficult to concentrate those storms around its centre. And that's going to mean it needs even more time to put itself together. On top of that, it's got a little friend over here in the Gulf, a little very weak low in the Gulf. And that little weak low in the Gulf is creating its own set of little storms and stuff. And so that's disrupting some of the flow pattern into this low over here, all right, because they're close enough to each other to be disrupting their airflow patterns. So we've got a situation there where we see strong forcing at the surface, but that surface forcing is over such a broad area that might work against the cyclone's potential development in that medium term. eventually, if the cyclone gets enough time and space in that environment, I don't see any reason why it can't develop into a tropical cyclone, but it needs that time and space. All right, so the environment remains very friendly for tropical cyclone development in that northern Coral Sea for an extended period of time. But this cyclone or this low is going to need that time. And you saw that in some models, we don't give it the time because we don't move it eastwards far enough. All right, so that's the problem that we're facing with this cyclone. We don't know how far east it's going to go, and it needs every bit of easterly motion it can get to give itself time to try and centralize all of that big storm activity that's going to be operating on the outer edges of it. All right, so we need to try, or it needs to try, and bring those storms into the center. And that's going to be its biggest struggle while it's up here. Not developing the storms, bringing them into the center and creating that lowest pressure at the center. That's what's going to be difficult, because all of this area up here is going to be very low pressures, low atmospheric pressures. And to try and centralize that over one spot, over such a broad rotational area, it's going to take time. That's why it needs to move east. It can't just move north and suddenly develop into a cyclone 100 k's off the coast. It won't do that. It needs that time and it needs that space. All right, so that's the expectation with this system. Now, as I said, the end result is likely to be a stronger system, potentially a cyclone, moving onto the coast between sort of Cairns and or I'd say even the Daintree and Townsville would be a stronger type system because it would have had that time and space. A weaker system would move north of the Daintree because it didn't have that time and space to develop. And the reason being, why would we see something move so far southwards towards the Cairns-Townsville area? Well, because when we take a look at our thunderstorm steering winds for deep thunderstorms, what we see is a slightly different steering mechanism. So if the system's able to produce very deep convection, it comes under some different steering mechanisms. And the steering mechanism here is a mid-level ridge, not just to the south, but also to the southeast. And that drives the system potentially a little bit more southwesterly, or south-southwesterly even, if it was to deepen strongly. If it doesn't deepen strongly, it's very, very simple. The system will just charge westwards, all right? And the system will charge westwards well north of where it is there because of a very strong mid-level ridge that develops. So there's a few nuances about the intensity, and there's a few nuances about the depth of thunderstorm development. The deeper the storm development, and the stronger the storm development around the system, the more likely it is to track in a more southwesterly direction. The shallower the system, the less well put together it is, the more likely it is just to annoy Cooktown and Cape Melville area as a very weak and broad trough and low. So at this stage, remembering our times, by the way, we're very confident the system comes back at the coast. That's why we're talking like this, all right? That's why I haven't even asked you, I haven't even sort of started umming and ahhing about that part. That part is very confident in the forecast. There's no situations at the moment, not one situation I've seen at the moment where this system misses the coast. All right, that's why we're talking so in such certainty. Normally we don't do that with cyclones and lows because there's a lot of uncertainty. But this one's pretty clear cut. It's coming to the coast. We then have to figure out the structure of the cyclone, how deep some of those storms are going to be, and is it going to move to the coast in a westerly direction, as in directly west, or is it going to move to the coast in a more southwesterly direction? That's what we have to decide in the next few days. We've got plenty of time to figure it out, and we'll know a little bit more when we see the system move. If it moves north, directly north, and no eastward motion, then we can sort of say we're not going to have enough time for this thing to get going. If it starts to move northeast, then we need to have our game faces on and really start to study this thing, all right? Because there is some potential there, and we've just seen the environment up here in the northern Coral Sea, as long as it goes north of Willis Island, is very favourable for development of a tropical cyclone. But it's going to need time because it's going to be such a broad, loosey-goosey low to start with, and that's going to take at least a day or two to try and tighten up. So it's going to need at least 2 days. Once it stops trying to move northeastwards, it's going to need 2 days to pull itself together. And then it's going to need another day or two to try and then get stronger in its core to develop into a tropical cyclone. So all of that's going to take time. Nothing's going to happen quick here. And so that's why we talk about time and space. And that's why it needs that time and space. Alrighty. that's all I've got for you. There are three things. The Cocos LOW, another cyclone for the Cocos potentially, which will be Western Australia's 6th cyclone of the season. Holy dooly. Share them around, would you, WA? And then the possibility of fairly heavy rainfall from that Tully area down to Ayr, with a particular focus in the Ingham Rolling Stone region, possibly Townsville. Townsville's still in the hunt there. And then we talked about the low that comes off the coast in this area, tracking north or northeast. Very important distinction. And the need for the low to have time and space. If it has time and space, game face on. If it doesn't have time and space, it'll be a bit of rain, good rain for the far north. All right? So that's where we are. I'll open it up to some questions now. How do I give a virtual star? Would love to, but not computer savvy. Hey, Brad. Dylan might be able to help you out with the stars, mate. I think there's an option there on Facey, I think, to give a star, mate. But thanks for thinking about giving us a star. But listen, don't forget we've got a subscription service, mate. Don't forget that. That's how we get funded. Stars are cool, but our subscription service, plus you get to learn some stuff there as well, which you don't get to learn. So weatheriq.com.au/subscribe. Chris Trenopoulos. Sorry, mate. I don't understand what you mean. I confess. Oh, no, man. Nah, bud. It's only natural. I only do the natural stuff. Sorry to disappoint. You reckon we'll get the whole show? No idea, Zabinator. I'm not sure where you are, mate. Yep, I know YouTube dropped out again. I just don't get why it does that. Ingham. Yeah, Shravana. Yeah, we just talked about Ingham there a fair bit, mate. So let's go back to Ingham, and we'll zoom into Ingham, because that is going to be a bit of a focal point for the next couple of days. So let's have a look at Ingham. So as we talked about, there's some big rain coming off the coast of the Cairns district, right? And look at that, this really slow-moving area, very heavy rain, just off Curramine Beach, Mission Beach. Look at that, wow. Very, very heavy rain there. Now, as we're seeing the flow change, we might start to see this push, well, not might, we should start to see this push in a southerly or southwesterly direction. Now, you can see through Townsville, they're getting a few showers. See how they're rushing in from the east? And see how these are really slow moving. And to the north, we'll take you up a little bit further north, you can see how they're moving from the west. So this whole area is going to start to rotate broadly and create a convergence max between Tully and Ayr. And so the expectation here is going to be very heavy rainfall through the night in this region. We're just not sure where the heaviest point is going to be, but Ingham is certainly in the firing line for that tonight, and very importantly, Shavana, very importantly, Ingham continues to be in this firing line for tomorrow and tomorrow night and even early Monday morning. So there is very, very significant rainfall potential for Ingham, fairly significant flood potential for that region. So we want to be sort of where this easterly is coming onto the coast. Just north of where this easterly is coming onto the coast is probably where we're going to see some of our heaviest falls of rain. You can see the easterly sort of coming all the way through to about Rolling Stone. So yeah, Ingham unfortunately is in that line now for the next 12, 24, 36 hours where they could see some very, very heavy rain. Now it's going to take a little bit of time to set up. Right now it's set up over Tully, all right? But eventually we do expect that to drift southwards over the course of the night into tomorrow morning. All right, and we do have the potential for a development of a convergence zone much closer to Townsville as well on the leading edge of this easterly. So we'll be looking out for that, and especially to see how there might be some interaction with some storm activity over inland with this stuff coming in west. Hey, Nitso, quick question. Brett Bronca. If this ridge is steering things west, why doesn't it steer the Gulf flow west out the way? Because the Gulf flow is so weak, Brett. So we don't expect the Gulf flow to be very strong, and we don't expect it to be producing widespread deep thunderstorm activity. We may see some storms on the periphery associated with the monsoon, but we're probably not going to see that system create a situation where I think it's going to be very much a surface circulation, if you get what I mean. So it's going to be very surface based. It's not going to develop vertically in the atmosphere. So we don't think that that same mid-level flow is going to be steering that to the west. So it's a good question. And look, I'm not going to say there's no chance. I mean, if that low did start to develop, we could see it move west. And longer term, that cyclone off Queensland's coast, or low off Queensland's coast, let's call it a low for now, not a cyclone, that could move all the way west across Australia into Western Australia longer term. So the point you make there, maybe not the Gulf low as such, but watch this North Queensland low once it crosses the coast. There is a risk there that it stays too far north to be driven into Queensland, so it stays north, pushes across the Gulf, pushes across the base of the NT and pops off the Kimberley longer term. That mid-level ridge that's going to drive this low west, that's why we're so confident the low is going to hit the coast. That same mid-level ridge is probably going to stick around for a week or so through Central Australia. So once it hits the coast of Queensland, that thing's probably going to keep motoring across the mainland all the way out west, right? So something to look out for if you're in Western Australia or the Northern Territory, that possibility of that system tracking that way. Kate Cooper, I love you explain everything. I'm assuming you say I love how I explain everything, but thank you, Kate. Hey, Mike, how you going there in Brizzy? A couple of showers down that way, I think. Nate from Julia Creek, hello, how are you? Hopefully you're high and dry, I hope. The heavier stuff, let's have a quick look at Julia Creek. It's not over yet, but it's getting close, Oh, yeah, not liking that at all, eh? Look at that, lots and lots of rain and storm activity through there. Remember, there's a big catchment here, the Fitzroy, the Flinders. Flinders catchment is dreadfully flooded at the moment. I think it's in a major flood warning, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know much about floods, that's not my area. But yeah, it is, major flood warning. So, and yeah, there's a lot of annoying thunderstorm, slow-moving thunderstorm activity through there. But mate, you're almost in the clear. This is probably the last big day of rain and storms through this area, and then from tomorrow, I would suggest it's going to be a little bit more isolated through this area, and then from Monday, we're expecting a fairly sharp clearance north. So yeah, you can see there. So some pretty heavy rain today, mostly east of Julia Creek. This afternoon, this evening, continuing on overnight, and then pushing up northwards tomorrow. So less showers and storms, still a couple around, but less of them, and pushing northwards. And then by Monday, complete clearance out of here. Thank God, I reckon you'd be saying. There's going to be some nice blue skies here for an extended period. Of course, we do need to watch that low, because if it does move a little bit more to the Townsville area, then perhaps as it then drifts westwards, it's going to bring in a fair bit of rain for you. But for now, most models are telling us the low is going to stay north of there, so no significant rain coming for Julia Creek from that low once it crosses the coast. Hi from Kuara Beach, Northern Beaches, Cairns, drizzly arvo, bit of thunder. Yeah, Alicia, there's been some really nice non-severe thunderstorms up there, which is good. I don't think there's been too much. Oh no, there is. So the Bureau's got some warning there, probably for heavy rain, I'd say. Yeah, probably heavy rain. Yeah, so most of them have been non-severe except for the rainfall, right? So you can see though, everyone's getting, I like the fact that there's so many of them around, so there's not too many people that are going to go and bitch and whinge and say, carry on and say that they missed out, which is always good. That's the big thing with thunderstorms. You say people are in line with the chance of the storm, and you'll get 2 people that say they got it, and 50 people will go, oh, where's these storms you said there? Because you know how storms are hit and miss, right? A lot of these ones, at least are hitting people. And even if they're not hitting you as a storm, you're getting the patchy rain from them, which is, I guess is what most people want. Nick, may as well do the forecast for Sri Lanka while you're up there. I'm not sure what that's in response to, Nick, but no, man, I don't know anything about Sri Lanka. Oh, you mean the Cocos? Yeah, the Cocos is a long way away, man, but hey, it is what it is. Hey, Chris Nitzo, how much rainfall for the Whit Sunday night, Monday morning? Yeah, not much. A few showers. I don't think there's going to be much there. Look. Shower activity. You can see this shower activity around the Whit Sundays. There's probably more of that coming. And especially once the low starts to put itself together near Townsville, there'll be a bit of an increase in showers. But Yeah, look, I'm not seeing heavy rain through the Whitsundays at all, at any stage. I'm just seeing some shower activity, and that shower activity will probably start to add up, right? And Monday's probably the most showery day as the low pushes up and off the coast. Yeah, when you're asking for numbers, let's have a quick squeeze. I'm not too keen on giving numbers for those sort of things, but look, 10 to 30 mils looks like the order of the period. I think the high resolution model might be giving you a bit more love, but the high resolution model, yeah, it's a very loving model. Yeah, no, it's about 10 to 30 as well. So, yeah, look, all the big heavy rain's going to be in the Herbert Burdekin, eh? So, we're not, look, it's going to be enough to green some grass in the Whitsundays, but we're not seeing any, major falls. Jen, just changing it up from the usual guns out comment. How do I give a virtual? Oh, Brad, we've answered that one. Cairns has had a steady rain since about 3 p.m. Hey, we talked about Cairns just before, Emma. So Cairns is going to see the same thing tomorrow that they saw today. And then on Monday, they should see a few showers and storms. But on Monday, we're going to start to see that low begin to affect the coastline and start to stabilise the area south of Cairns. So Cairns is right in that spot where they might get a follow-up bit of rain on Monday as well. But they also might just see a couple of showers developing on the southeasterly. So you're right on the threshold on Cairns on Monday, because we are going to see stability start to push in. But as the low pushes, if the low pushes northwards a bit, there's a chance there Cairns gets a bit of a touch up again on Monday with a bit of rainfall, all right? And then Tuesday we do stabilise, Wednesday we do stabilise, okay? If this gets going, will you go chasing, says Jen. Jen, oh, geez, I would never say no to a chase, but our primary focus these days is not chasing. That's why we changed our name to from Oz Cyclone Chasers to Weather IQ. Our primary focus is on the people that pay our bills, and the people that pay our bills are our subscribers. And our subscribers, we did a poll. Not too many of them were too interested in our chasers. Most of them were just interested in our weather information. So we need to cater to our subscribers. Look, if there's something there that we just can't say no to, I might be able to put someone from the team on the ground there. But, mate, our focus is now this, right? This service to people, to explain the weather rather than chase the weather. Chasing the weather is something we do for fun now. And unfortunately that clashes, right? So if we're gonna chase now, we would chase in the USA, go and chase some tornadoes or maybe some hurricanes or something like that. But it's not a situation where we would go chasing. Maybe, look, if it decides to become a Cat 4 or 5, I would never say no to that. I know in my mind I would say no now, but I'd end up doing it, all right? So, but it's not going to be a Cat 4 or 5. It's not going to be that intense, all right? So, but yeah, look, I would never say never, but my primary focus is now looking after the people that look after us, and that's our subscription service. No worries, Nathan says, thank you, very informative. No problems, Nathan. Thanks, Kate. Not so. I should watch your Monday live for a better idea of weather in Atherton and Georgetown. Georgetown, the weather on Monday should be the last day of weather in Georgetown. After that, Georgetown should be settling down. For Atherton, probably the same. After Monday, things should be settling down in Atherton, right? So the idea is once that low starts to move off the coast, while it's off the coast, Atherton will see a bit of drizzle. There'll still be a bit of shower activity on the coastline, but for Atherton, not going to be much there, mate. For Atherton and Georgetown today, tomorrow, the rest of tonight, tomorrow, and the first half of Monday certainly look active, and then things are settling down from Monday afternoon, Monday evening. So that's what I'd be there. Alana, I'm a subscriber and love your content. I only ever listen to you guys. You're more accurate than most. Thanks, Alana. Thank you. Thanks for being a subscriber. Bradley, g'day, love being a member and watching the daily posts. Is the swooper still present? Hey, Brad, we probably won't talk about that one publicly, mate, because I don't want to sort of get people on the thinking about, the next system when we've got one system there for them. The next system doesn't look like it's going to hit the coast. So there's no point sort of panicking, folks, about an upcoming system that probably won't do anything. So we might give that question a miss, mate. Please don't take that the wrong way. I just don't want to start, panicking the public talking about stuff that may or may not happen. I'd rather talk about the stuff that is going to happen, and we can focus our energy on that, and worry about the things that are going to happen, not, the maybe nots longer term. Adam, how's the sweeper? Yeah, same thing, Adam. Whatever I just said there to Brad. Thanks, Nitzo. Made it back from Boyne Island today. Bruce was better expected pothole-wise. Yeah. My day is in Port Douglas. Will they get much rain? My dad is in Port Douglas. Kate. Yeah, Kate. Port Douglas is expecting a lot of rain. Let's have a look. We'll go to the Daintree. By the way, folks, while I'm getting the Daintree up there, our major sponsor, Townsville Sheds, or Fair Dinkum Builds Townsville, now they're called. Build your great shed safe accredited shed. So very generous sponsorship. Right, let's have a look here. The area up around, wrong chart, Nitzo. Can't do two things at once, I'm a male, can't multitask. All right, so there we go. Today, obviously, showers and thunderstorms coming off the coast. Let's see that we should be on the tail end of those. Yep, we're getting the tail end of those. You can see those coming offshore. A little bit of light patchy rain coming from some more convection that's dying. So that's today. And look, I expect to see very similar things happening tomorrow in this area, right? So showers and thunderstorms coming off the coast, and sort of dying as they're approaching. But there's a good chance there that we can snag an early afternoon storm, followed by maybe a late afternoon storm and some rain coming across with that. And then as we go into Monday, you're going to be on the north side of the low. So Monday, we're anticipating the possibility maybe of some strong storms around Port Douglas. And then as the low starts to move north of us and east of us, we're going to see that last bit of storm activity on Monday track offshore, Monday night. And then on Tuesday, nothing but a couple of isolated showers through the Port Douglas region. And then, of course, we need to wait and see what the low does, right? So if the low hits the coast north of you in this Cooktown area, Port Douglas will see a lot of rain from the south side of that low. If the low hits south of you, down around, say, the Ingham, Townsville, Tully area, well, then you probably won't get much more except for some more showers and storms once the low's south of you. But there is going to be a period of time there where you're going to see some quiet weather around Port Douglas. It does depend how far offshore the low gets. So the further offshore the low gets, the more quiet things are going to be. But without telling you how much rain you're going to get from the low, because that's something no one knows, you can see here that we could see 100 to 200 mils around Port Douglas and the Daintree in general, right? So there's some pretty good rain to be had there. And you probably need to tell your dad not to water the plants. He'll be right, okay? But is it going to be flooding rain? Probably not. There might be some heavy rain from storms where you're going to get, 30, 40 mils really quickly, and there'll be a bit of surface water, so maybe a bit of flash flooding, but not necessarily riverine type flooding that we'd be too concerned about here. Obviously, if the low stays up here very close to the coast, then those numbers will really add up as we go into Thursday, Friday, etc. And by Friday, of course, if it does stay close to the coast, it would have hit the coast. Dixon Mudge, chances of driving to Townsville from Cairns on Wednesday. Yeah, I'd say pretty good, mate, Wednesday. Yeah, look, I don't know much about their river systems. I do know the Seymour goes up, but I also know the Seymour goes down pretty quick too, all right? So, the Wednesday, I think we're good because Monday's the last day of big rain around Ingham, and if the Bruce is going to flood between Cairns and Townsville, it's going to flood there, right? And so Monday's the last rain around Ingham, big rain around Ingham, and then... that's. I would say Wednesday you're probably all right, and even if you left it till later on Wednesday, you'd be even more sweet. Jess, couple of massive cracks of thunder in Cairns. Yeah, nice. Cherie Shepherd, how's it looking for rainfall in Bowen? Bowen's on the southern edge of everything, Cherie. So at this stage, mate, just. Look, Bowen's been pretty unlucky the last couple of days. They've been just a little bit too far south. There's been some good rain through the Burdekin. They had 150 mils there a couple of days ago, and Bowen sort of got the dregs got a couple of mils out of that. So same thing here. We're expecting to see some big rain north of Bowen, out towards the, and even north of the Burdekin in this situation. But yeah, you can see there, mate. Look, we're looking here out till Friday, and we're sort of looking at 30, 40 mils if you're lucky. And you need to be a bit lucky to get some of these showers that are coming through. Yeah, there's nothing major on the cards there. Of course, Bowen needs to look out. If we do get that cyclone coming back at the coast down here around Townsville, Bowen will certainly be in the firing line for big rain later on. But remember, the Townsville scenario was an outskirt scenario. It's not an expected scenario. So I don't want to sort of be promising you rain from that. From a small chance scenario, right? But generally speaking, a few showers coming onto the coast for Bowen. Pretty windy, especially once this low gets going. It'll be very windy. Blowing Bowen, they don't call it that for no reason, do they? But no significant rainfall. So don't think you're going to get flooded. You might get enough rain to keep your grass green, so you don't have to water it for a few days. But that's about the most I'm expecting through that area, mate. Even the high-res model, which likes to give everyone love. Let's see if it gives you any love. Let's see. Yeah, so even the high-res model is not giving you much love there, mate. So, you know, when you're not getting much rain out of the high-res model, because the high-res model loves to dump rain on everyone, you know, it's a pretty ordinary setup. So not much expected around Bowen, mate. Just a few showers, eh? Belinda, I think that's how you say the name. Hi, Nitso. How is Innisfail looking in either scenario? Winds. Winds are the easy one, right? Winds are very, very easy to forecast because these are going to be strong no matter where you are. So you've asked me the easy part. I thought you were going to ask me about rain, but rain's tricky. Winds are going to be easy. So let's just use Tully as our focal point. I've got it. Yeah, I'll have to chat to Mike to see if we can get Innisfail up there as a standalone thing on our weather centre. Right, so the big thing to understand here is that at some stage on Monday, we're going to develop a low, right? So be careful, don't be on the water wind-wise on Monday as this low is forming, because its initial motion from wherever it forms is going to be north. So the idea here is its northerly motion, as it pushes through you, there's a chance there that it's creating some showers and thunderstorms, and then behind that, as it continues moving northwards, look at those winds. So see the winds on the south side of these lows. So you see the winds getting up to 30 to 40 knots. That's south of Innisfail. But as the low shifts northwards, those big winds are going to come through Innisfail later on Monday and into Tuesday. And you can see that happening there. By Tuesday, you're getting those 30, 35 knot southeasterlies, gusts 30 to 35 knot southeasterlies, and sustained 20 to 30 knot southeasterlies through Innisfail. And then we've got possibly even stronger winds, because remember, big southeasterly surge. This is why we need time and space for the low, because on Thursday it's going to get a big southeasterly surge coming up its clacker. And so that means for Innisfail, we're going to see those winds gusting to 35, maybe 40 knots even on the south side of that low. So this is a pretty serious southeasterly coming in on the south side, but it doesn't get there till Thursday. So there's an initial burst of winds through Innisfail on Monday night, Tuesday, as the low shifts north of you. And then there's a big burst of southeasters once the low has pushed up more to the northeast. Matt, what's the comparison of rainfall with both scenarios? So Matt, in the scenario where the low stays out to the north, so I'll give you a look here at so that's the scenario where the low stays up north. So I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked at the latest Euro, but the Euro in every other model run was showing us a coastal crossing up around Cooktown, Cape Melville, right? So you can see there, the low doesn't quite put itself together. It runs out of time and then continues tracking west into the Gulf, and then potentially continues tracking west all the way to WA. So in that scenario where the system's crossing, you can see big, strong monsoon, and just before it crosses, see this big, strong easterly? So this is going to start bringing in some very heavy rain on the south side. Once the cyclone crosses the low in this scenario, crosses the coastline, very heavy rain on the south side of the low, very heavy rain on the north side of the low. And the low itself probably not creating a hell of a lot of heavy rain, because it's still a very loose system in this scenario. So the end result here is going to be, when we're looking at rain accumulations in this setup, Okay, we're looking at very heavy rain to the north of the low, and look at those numbers down here around the Cairns, Port Douglas, Tully area. We're looking at sort of half a metre-ish, right? So very heavy falls through that area and very heavy falls north of it. And you'll notice where the low crosses the coast, just north of Cooktown, those falls are around 1 to 200 millimetres all up. And this is between now and next Sunday, so not 2 days' time, 10 days time, or 8 days time, sorry. So the idea here is that's the sort of, when we're talking about such a loose system, we're talking about rainfall that's displaced a long way away from the cyclone's core, because it's such a loose system. It's creating all the rain way south and all the rain way north. All right, so that's that scenario. And obviously the other scenario where we've got a more powerful system coming onto the coastline, we tend to find that rainfall might become a bit more concentrated. Usually the GFS is good for a powerful localised... No, it's not good. All right, let's use the AI. So when we see this, a more powerful system, we still see the potential for the monsoon to drive lots of convergence coming onto the coastline. So I'm just going to take us out till landfall. So because the system in this scenario hits the coast later, landfall isn't until Sunday. So I've got to take us out an extra day here to see the sort of outcome of the rainfall there, right? So what we're seeing here is still the monsoon creating very heavy rain for the tip end. So what can we lock in? The tip end. Rainfall for the tip end. Lock that in, Eddie, because that monsoon is going to be strong whether we get a loosey-goosey monsoon low or a tidy cyclone, right? So no matter what we get here, the tip end is going to see very heavy rainfall. But then we've got that monsoonal convergence just offshore off Cape Melville. And then here we've got some good rainfall around the Cairns district, falls in the 200 to 300 millimetre range, because as our cyclone starts to move south-southwest, we bring the monsoon into the coastline. So we bring that monsoonal flow into the coastline, and then as the cyclone moves onto the coastline, our heavier falls of rain are on the south side of the cyclone and well to the north of the cyclone. So if I give you a look here at what that looks like in the MSLP precip chart, all right, so you can see that our heavy falls of rain are north of the cyclone and south of the cyclone. And as it starts to tighten up, we begin tightening up that rainfall, but not quite. So the system, even here, which doesn't hit the coast until Sunday and hits the coast much stronger, is still only in the process of tightening up. And you can see there that the rainfall then, once the cyclone hits the coast, we lose that deep monsoonal convergence, and our focal point then becomes the southern side of the low for our heavy rain as we move inland. And you'll also see in this scenario that places like Mackay and Bowen might be getting a bit more rain in this more southern solution. And at this stage, there's no sign and evidence, clear evidence at least, that the system's going to feed into southern Queensland, but it might feed some moisture into a trough, a fairly weak shortwave trough coming through the south of the state, hopefully bringing a bit of rain into central Queensland. So this is a nicer rain scenario for more folks in the state, where we do have a tighter low that ends up hitting the coastline. It has a larger area of effect because of it interacts with the trough. Whereas in the first scenario, we have a loose system that only really interacts with the monsoon and with the southeast convergence. So it doesn't really spread the rain out through the state. This one at least spreads the rain out through the state. The problem, of course, is we don't want any rainfall spread through the state in this part of the state. And in this scenario, you're not going to be able to avoid heavy rainfall through North Queensland's interior. All right, so, and the last thing these poor folks need is another 1 to 200 mils coming from something like that. All right, so ideally, this scenario would be off the table if you were sort of putting your wish list together and you just want the system to stay up north, right, as a weaker low, and just drive that rainfall up into the tip and the far northern parts of Queensland. I'm sure if anyone in northern inland Queensland's putting their wish list in, this scenario where the system crosses the coast in this Cairns Townsville area is not on their wish list at all, because of the amount of rain that they'll get as that system pushes westwards. All right, so that's our two scenarios, mate. Andrew, hey Nitso, after Jenna, the names are Koji. Oh, there you go, Koji. And Luana, then Mitchell. Okay, so this one could be called Koji. There you go. Nice. Thanks, Andrew. Chris, hey Nitso, am I really hearing you hoping that low turns into a cyclone? Just an observation, as you keep saying cyclone first. Oh, no, look, when I talk about lows, Chris, just one of the things, yeah, and the subscribers pull me up for it too sometimes. So when I say in meteorology, a low and a cyclone, they're both cyclonic systems. And so I simplify that by just calling them cyclones. And sometimes I just forget that I'm not talking to, I guess I'm talking to the public. And when I say the word cyclone, people's ears prick open and don't realize that I'm still talking about the low. Yeah, it's just something that I need to get out of. It's just something that I've gotten used to. Because as I say, in a scientific field, when we're talking about a cyclonic system, we just call it a cyclone, right? Or a tropical cyclone, even though technically we're really talking about a low here. So I don't have a preference at the moment, Chris. If you're asking me that question about whether or not, I will probably have a preference on Monday night once we see whether the system's going to move north or northeast. If it moves northeast, then my preference will be that we could see a cyclone, a tropical cyclone strength system. If it just moves directly north, then my preference will be that we're just going to see a loosey-goosey monsoonal low coming onto the coast up around Cooktown, Cape Melville. All right, and that's a fantastic sort of rainfall scenario for up there. So Matty, I've answered your question about both scenarios. Tully Heads has had a bit this afternoon. Yeah, it looks very active there. Jared, nice Nitso, nice gun show. Do you own sleeves? Stop it, Jared. Jared and I go way back. Yeah, mate, I do, but I do these updates straight after I've walked the dog and gone to the gym. So you're lucky you haven't got me on pre-workout tonight. I'd have blasted you. No, just kidding. Jared and I go way back. Good chat, Jared. Good chat. Is there any news on the swooper? No way. We're not talking about that tonight, mate, because there's not enough evidence about it. What's the comparison for rainfall with both scenarios? Yep, we've just done that one. Patrick, hey mate, good rain out there. Had it 41 in the storm yesterday. Nice. I think Patrick's out towards Charters Towers, just north of Charters Towers. So good stuff, Pat. Mariba had some good rain yesterday overnight and today. Yeah, and Mariba, that's a good point, Amy. Mariba's got a great chance at more storms for the next couple of days too. So we've got really good opportunities for thunderstorm activity up around the tablelands for today. Well, the rest of tonight they're going to decay, and then tomorrow we've got another big chance at storms tomorrow. Monday's a marginal chance because of the low. The low is going to start bringing some stable air to the south, and because of that, we might see a situation where Mariba sees a little bit less chance of a storm Monday. And then from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not expecting much at all in Mariba. And then, of course, we're watching to see what the low does, okay? My son never ended up coming for Christmas as he didn't listen to you and listen to other pages. He's thinking of coming next Thursday to Sunday now. Oh, dear. So, well, your son learnt the hard way not to listen to other pages. All right. Thanks, Chris Nito. Yep, we've already talked about that. Adam, starting my new job in the Paluma Ranges Monday for all the landslip work. Any idea what that's looking for like rain-wise? Yeah, Monday's our last day of heavy rain in that area, the first half of Monday, and then things are settling down on Monday around Paluma, mate. So you'll be able to get to work probably later on Monday once that rain settles down in the morning. And then through the week, mate, we're just looking at isolated showers, so you'll be fine throughout the week. And then, of course, we don't know for the weekend. We'll have to wait and see what the cyclone and where the low goes. Bear, hey, Nitso, I'm not trying to cherry pick scenarios, but will there be a blocking high, or is it blocking high between New Zealand and Kingston? Mate, is that a that's not really a tropical question, Bear. So I'm going to give that one a miss, mate. I know there's going to be, so if you're asking if there's going to be a steering ridge, a high pressure ridge to steer the system through the mid-levels, I can definitely tell you. But mate, I haven't studied any of that mid-latitude stuff right now, so because my energy and focus is up here on the north, mate, so I can't answer that for you. I just don't know. There'll be other pages down south that will deal with blocking highs and things like that. We don't deal with that southern stuff, mate, sorry. I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be mean there, mate. I don't have the time to look at that stuff. Ian Harvey, how is Dysart looking for rain? Nothing much until we know what happens with the cyclone, mate. So that's a question you might want to ask me once we know what's happening with the cyclone longer term. What we will see around Dysart is the possibility of a trough coming through. Yeah, so there's nothing there that I mean, there might be a very light, drizzly bit of rain around the place, and a bit of cloud cover. But there's nothing there around Dysart that makes us go, wow, that looks interesting. And there won't be until we see a trough coming through the state. And at this stage, without our cyclone providing that trough with moisture, there's a chance Dysart might be struggling to see even a storm out of that next. So there it is there, actually. Yeah, so there's our trough coming through Wednesday, Thursday next week. And you can see there, there'll be a bit of storm activity around the inland parts of the state there. But overall, mate, it's just going to be hit and miss activity. So nothing there that makes me go wow for Dysart, and nothing there that's going to break a drought for you. Josh Sinapius, cheers Neto, been trusting you since you were OCC. Awesome, Josh. Great to have you with us, mate. Stick around. Things might get interesting. Need a high to come up from the south and push it away. Just remember, Corey, that high pressure systems at the surface don't have any impact on the cyclone. All right, so high pressure systems at the surface don't govern where a cyclone moves. It's what's happening in the layers between about 2-3 kilometres up and about 7-8 kilometres up. That's what governs a cyclone's motion. So there's been many, many times where we've had highs and cyclones move southeast. And there's been many times where we've had highs at the surface and cyclones have moved west. Right, so understand that highs at the surface don't govern what a tropical cyclone does at all. What they do potentially do is they drive a lot of dry air at the surface in towards the cyclone, and they also create a pressure gradient squeeze, and that creates a situation where large areas, oftentimes in Queensland, large areas of the coastline might see almost gale force winds on the south side of a cyclone, but the high pressure system itself will not have any impact on the motion of a tropical cyclone at the surface, because cyclones are governed by different levels of the atmosphere. And as I say, we've seen many times where there's been a high pressure system at the surface, but the upper level pattern might be more of a trough type pattern ahead of that high, and the cyclone drifts southeastwards. Sometimes we see a big high and we get a mid-level ridge that corresponds. And that's what we're seeing with this one, by the way. We're seeing a big high, and then we're also seeing a mid-level ridge basically doing the same thing, right, in the same areas. So we're seeing that large-scale easterly flow. And once again, mate, this is why, Corey, we're so confident that the cyclone or the low is going to hit the coast, right? That's why we're not seeing we're not talking about going out to New Zealand, out to the graveyard, none of that. Not even thinking about that as an option, right? It's just a matter of how far off the coast and how much time and space do we give it before it comes onto the coast. Hoping some of this monsoonal action. Yeah, Jace, that's the same sort of question as the guy from Dysart. It's just, mate, all I'm seeing at the moment is hit and miss. What you need to hope and pray and talk to the weather gods about is giving Townsville a touch up with a cyclone, because if that happens, that cyclone is going to be able to bring a lot of moisture into the upcoming trough mid to late next week. So that's your best bet of getting heavy rain through that Emerald area. To do that, you're going to need this low to track much further to the south in that Tully, Townsville, possibly even Bowen area. And then as it then pushes westwards, then it'll interact more certainly. There's more certainty that it'll interact with the upstream trough that's coming through. All right. Justin Tolley, there's a name from the old days. There you go, mate. We used to, Justin used to play for Centrals. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, nice to hear from you, Justin. Honest take on rain in Townsville. Nip, I still got the shits with you for sending me off. I don't even remember sending you off. I always thought we had a good relationship on the field. Yeah, mate, look, for Townsville, the rain comes tonight, tomorrow, and tomorrow night. And then after that, it settles down basically for the whole week. So we look at Townsville's potential here. So it's all about the convergence zone that sets up tonight between Townsville and Tully, and then the opportunity for heavy rain there. But we're on more the southern edge of that, right? But there's a chance there for heavy rain tonight. Tomorrow, we continue to maintain a convergence zone, but during the day, it might just settle down. It mightn't be quite as active. And then tomorrow night's our last chance at heavy rain. And then on Monday morning, we see that heavy rain track offshore. So in that time frame, sure, there could be some good falls. Our focal point is going to be that Ingham Cardwell area, where they're going to see 200 to 300 likely, and we're going to see maybe one. We'll be on the outskirts, probably about 100, maybe 150. The high-res model's telling us that we might see closer to 200 through the region, but the high-res model tends to be a little bit with the fairies, off with the fairies at times. Actually, no, the high-res model there, the latest one, is telling us to expect about 100 to 150 sort of in the area. So basically, mate, if we don't get any good rain tonight, we still have basically 24 hours of potential good rainfall after that. And then by Monday, early Monday morning, that should be the end of any big rain for Townsville, and it'll start to shift off the coast. So there you go, JT, Justin Tolley. What a name. Blast from the past, mate. Good to have you with us. Sheree Shepherd. Cheers, Nitzo. No worries, Sheree. Kayla, let's hope Cairns magically gets a cyclone. Jesus. Okay. Stephen, them weather pages on Facebook are saying so much different. But key is listening, Nitzo. Big fan. He saved my car. Did I save your car? Wow. Thanks, Steve. Please don't send it back to Mount Isa. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Sarah. So ideally for Mount Isa, we don't want the cyclone hitting sort of Cairns southwards. If the cyclone hits Cairns southwards, Mount Isa's in for a touch-up again, and we don't want that. We don't want anyone in that northern interior getting a touch-up. So ideally, we want that system staying north of Cairns, A, because it's going to be weaker, and B, because it's going to affect only the far north when it comes to rainfall. Blaine, Mariba rainfall for both scenarios. Yeah, that's an interesting. I haven't thought about the tablelands. Yeah, let's have a quick squiz. Obviously not the level of rainfall you're going to get on the coast, but seeing a system sort of coming onto the coast, you know, up here around Cooktown. So firstly this one where we get a cyclone or something stronger like a cyclone that crosses south of Cairns. So there'll be a period there where Mariba might get some really powerful showers and thunderstorms as the system pushes to your south. And so that's it there. So you can see there on Sunday, just before it hits the coastline, Mariba getting some powerful thunderstorms coming in from the west there. All right, so there's a good chance at rain there, but no major prolonged rainfall in that setup. It's just a sort of one night of big storms. And the other setup where we have a system that, you know, a loosey-goosey one, there is a chance there for Mariba to get ongoing and fairly significant rainfall. We do get a situation here where, yeah, you can see there lots of heavy rain on the coast as we go into Friday, Saturday, and there is potential there for some of that to extend inland. So this is the scenario where we get the loosey-goosey low north of Cairns. Particularly up around that Cape Trib Cooktown area. That's the scenario where Mariba could see some worthwhile rainfall, especially once the lows hit the coast and moving across the Cape. That's where Mariba would see that deep moisture advection extend inland and be forced inland by the low moving west, right? So this scenario is going to be much more favourable for Mariba, and Mariba could see themselves with a couple of 100 mils out of the sort of next week and a half. Obviously, the Townsville scenario, you're going to see a couple of storms today. Oh, not today now because it's all over, but tomorrow you're going to see a couple of storms again. And then maybe Monday, if the low's slow moving to start with, you might see another storm on Monday. And then you're just going to fine up. And then if the system comes down south of you, you're going to get that one day of powerful storms. And they're always going to be hit and miss. But my God, if you get hit, watch out. Make sure your shed's safe accredited. See that top left there? Shed safe accredited. But that's the expectation. So for Mariba, if you're looking for rain, you need the low hitting north of you. If you're just looking for one day of storms, you want the thing hitting south of you. All right, Matty. Cheers, mate. Tableland sub here. Listen to you since the old Weather Zone chat days. Oh, good on you, Matty. That's a long time ago. Good stuff. Matty, same thing for wherever you are on the tableland. So Atherton will be the same as Mariba. Herberton will be the same as Mariba. All those areas are going to be the same. Ravenshoe's a little bit different because they're a little closer to the sort of, they're a bit higher and they're a bit closer to everything that's going on the coast. But same thing for you, mate, wherever you are on the tablelands. The tablelands very much similar no matter where you are, except for maybe Miller and Ravenshoe. Those two areas might see a bit more. Deborah, nothing on the horizon for Mackay, mate, unless we get a cyclone down around Townsville. And remember, that's a low probability scenario. It's not a no probability scenario. It's just a low probability scenario. Outside of that, you're looking at a few showers for the next couple of days, and then basically almost fine conditions for the week. If we do get the Townsville scenario, Deborah, the idea would be, if we do get the Townsville scenario, that'll come onto the coast on Sunday, and then after it crosses the coast is when the Mackay region will probably see a lot of rain developing on the south side of that system, when you get those deep tropical northeasterlies coming in. All right, so Deborah, just be aware that low probability scenario is what you're looking for if you want rain, and that's the one you're hoping that you don't get if you don't want rain. All right, so that's the expectation. And then longer term, I think there's another trough coming through about midweek. You might get a shower or storm midweek that week coming out of that. All right. Amy, Arakoon, I'm working up there. Yeah, Arakoon, let's have a look. Where's Weeper? We've got a Weeper overlay. Good question. So Arakoon's just south, right? So there's massive rain coming, Weeper northwards. Weeper up through the TIs. So big rain up there. Arakoon's going to find itself in an interesting little spot where you're going to be right along the monsoon trough. Now, Darwin folks know what this is like. This is a very frustrating place to be. You get slow-moving, blobby showers and thunderstorms with very little organisation, and you don't know whether you can go out and do anything, and you don't know if you need to stay home and do nothing. So it's one of those setups where you're right on the monsoon trough, and it's going to be on a day-by-day basis. It's going to be very tricky to know exactly what Arakoon's getting, right? So understand here, and I'll give you a quick look here. This is exactly what we're anticipating in this area, right? So we're anticipating that you're going to be right along. So as the monsoon starts to shift northwards, you're going to be right along the monsoonal trough, basically on the, yeah, there it is there. So through the back end of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the monsoon, it really stays almost stationary right around Arakoon. Eventually, if we get the Coral Sea Low tracking west, we're then going to get it across into the Gulf. And then once we get it across into the Gulf, the monsoon flow will start to push down into Arakoon. So see that? See that there? All right, so that's where you might start to get more organised and squally and widespread sort of convective activity through there. So it's an interesting question because Arakoon is likely to find itself right on the monsoon for a while. Weeper, we're a lot more confident are going to get very heavy rain. And obviously once we get up to Bamaga and Torres Strait, wow, they're going to get whacked. And they're going to get whacked with squalls and rain and all sorts of stuff. But for you guys and girls, it's going to be a bit patchier. It's going to be a bit blobby around the place, right? So understand there that we've got a little bit less confidence about the really intense stuff around Arakoon that we've got for areas further north. How far is the southeasterly blowing from by the time it gets to the Whitsundays tomorrow and by the next day? Dave Young. The Whitsundays. Let's have a look. No, that's way too far out. So it's more of an easterly for the Whitsundays. It's about an east-northeasterly, about 15 to 20s. That's the expectation for tomorrow. 15 to 20s through the Whitsunday. I'll just zoom in a little bit there. So through the Whitsunday region, about 15 to 20s is what we're expecting. Obviously with showers, that might gust up to 30 on the leading edge of those showers, but 15 to 20 seems about the order of the period. Maybe just offshore off Bowen, we could see 20 to 25s. And then as we continue, we can see that our lows start to show signs of developing there early Monday. Now that could be a period of stronger winds early Monday, but generally speaking, you only asked about today and tomorrow. So we're looking at 15 to 20s, 20 to 25 potentially in offshore waters, particularly back end of Sunday, and Monday's probably going to be a little bit windier around the Whitsundays and Bowen area as that low begins developing. And then, of course, wait for it, but there's a big gush of southeasterlies coming through the region. There they are there. And you can see 25 to 30s developing by Thursday. That's our big ridge that comes up and just smashes the whole coastline with 20, 30 knots So that's the expectation, and the pressure gradient squeeze between the low developing and the high down south is what creates those strong winds, mate. Stephen McGowan, will the Whitsundays get any decent rain? Probably not. You will get shower activity. Yeah, sure. You're going to get shower activity, and you're seeing some of that right now. Right? You're seeing some of that on the Whitsunday coast right now. Showers coming through. And you'll get more of that while the low is developing. And once the low has pushed up to the north, we're going to start to see those showers decrease. But there's going to be a period here for the next couple of days where you're going to get quite a few showers, and then basically all week next week you're just going to be chilling with mostly fine conditions, maybe a very isolated shower. Maybe when those big southeasters come through on Thursday, that might give you a little bit of a taste of a bit more shower activity on that leading edge, and then they'll stabilise you. And then, of course, you're just like waiting and watching like the rest of us about what that low is going to do. Is it going to stay up around Cooktown, or is it going to come around Townsville? If it comes around Townsville, yeah, that's when the Whitsundays will start to get big rain. All right, but we just don't know that. That's too far out. Adam G, Cairns rain. Yeah, fair bit, mate. You're right in the firing line there. So, different scenarios, different rainfall, right? So, once again, we've got to talk about our two scenarios. So, scenario one, we get the low that comes onto the coast south of Cairns. Cairns, not as much rain. Maybe some powerful thunderstorms, but not as much rain. Scenario two, where the low stays a loosey-goosey, or have I got that wrong? The scenario two, the loosey-goosey low that comes up on the coast around Cooktown, Cape Trib, that scenario gives Cairns a lot of rain. So let's have a look at the loosey-goosey scenario. So this is the one that, if you're looking for rain in Cairns, this is the one you want to hope for, the loosey-goosey low. All right, so as we go through, we can see in this scenario, we're getting a lot of showers and thunderstorms for the next 24 hours. And then on Monday night, Tuesday, we're going to see a period of heavy rainfall on the exposed coastline. This will miss Cairns. It'll be Innisfail southwards. And then the low will lift off a little bit to the north. As the low lifts off to the north on Tuesday and Wednesday, we do see shower activity coming onto the coast in Cairns. And then as the low just stuffs around pretty close to the coast, it creates a very interesting environment here for prolonged shower activity and the possibility for convergence along the coastline. So this scenario is clearly a much bigger rain producer for Cairns than, say, the scenario where the cyclone might hit, or the low gets more time to develop and the cyclone hits further south. If the low goes further east and has more time to develop, that means there's going to be less rain through Cairns. All right, and especially if that system then hits south of Cairns, there'll be way less rain for Cairns. So this scenario is the one you want for Cairns. The loosey-goosey low staying up there around Cooktown brings Cairns about 300 or 400 mils of rain over the next week and a bit. So this is a really nice scenario if Cairns wants rain. All right, but it's also a scenario that can be quickly taken away if the low moves too far eastwards. And then we go to scenario two. And scenario two, once again, is this type of scenario here. Okay, this type of scenario here where Cairns gets a little bit less rain, around 100 to 200. So you're still getting some nice rain, but you're not getting the really big numbers that you're potentially getting in scenario one. So scenario two calls for a stronger cyclone, or a stronger low possible cyclone, that hits the coast south of Cairns. And that's what drives a little bit less rain through Cairns, more storm activity through Cairns, more patchy rainfall through Cairns, and less constant and consistent shower activity. So that's the differences in the scenarios for Cairns. Adam? Brett, hey Nitso, what's the chance of getting from Townsville to Cairns on Friday and back on Monday? What's Friday? Friday is... Oh, mate, no. I can't give you no. I'm not even going to try. Because that's right. That's literally the time, right? Friday to Monday, bud. That's, yeah. Unless you're talking about... No, what's today? Saturday. No, you're talking about next Friday. Nah, man, I can't give you anything there. I mean, we could have a cyclone on the coast. We could have a low on the coast. It could be 300 mils in a day. No, yeah. No. That's a how long is a piece of string question, Brett. I can't help you out there, mate. Sorry. Yeah, that's a bridge too hard. That's in the too hard basket for sure, man. When are we getting some good weather for fishing off Townsville, bud? Yeah, long time. What was I seeing here? I was seeing a ridge continuing maybe after the system crosses. Oh, heck. I genuinely don't know. It's not something that I've been paying attention to, but it's a long time. Don't go planning anything fishing next week, that's for sure. I'm looking at the wrong thingy. Surface wind. So we see southeasters, 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 southeasters. What are we up to here? Monday. And then big, strong northerlies. If the cyclone comes your way, big, strong northerlies on the backside. Then the northerlies settle down. That's probably our first decent fishing day, Wednesday the 14th. So yeah, a long time, man. Long time. Fishing probably, I haven't even looked. That's how long away it is. Newcastle, hey Elwood, mate, we're tropical Australia, so I can't tell you what Newcastle's doing. There'll be other pages that deal with Newcastle. We deal with Gold Coast northwards, and we deal with Carnarvon northwards on the west coast. Only the tropics, mate. So it's way too hard. I haven't even thought about looking down into northern New South Wales. That's even central New South Wales. Sorry, mate, I can't help you out there. Deborah, appreciate that you do this, Nitso. Great service. Thanks, Deb. If you'd like to support us, folks, head over to weatheriq.com.au/subscribe. It's $32 a year. It's not going to break your bank. I'm not asking you for a house down payment. It's $32 once a year to get all my video forecasts. Today there were 7 forecasts issued, 7 of them. Sometimes there's 10. Whew. I don't know how I still have a voice. All right. We're supposed to be getting a flight out of Cairns on Tuesday the 13th. Reckon we will be all right. Yeah. Tuesday, hang on, 13th. Yeah, no, it would have gone by then. So whatever cyclone's around, Tuesday the 13th, she's all done and dusted by that, mate. So remember, if it's hitting Cairns, it's hitting Saturday, Sunday. If it's hitting north of Cairns, it's hitting Friday, Saturday. If it's hitting Townsville, it's hitting Sunday, possibly early Monday. All right, so that's the sort of time frames we're looking for. And you're talking about Tuesday. You are spot on to go, Liam. No problems, mate. Belinda Barndon, not sure what I missed. What's the go for Port? No, we've already answered that one, Belinda. We've already talked about Port Douglas. We just got a severe weather warning in Mareeba, Tablelands from QPS. Nice. That'll be from the storms that are currently going on, I'd imagine. Let's have a quick look. What do we got around Mareeba? Let's zoom in. Yeah, heavy rain. Do we have any strong winds? Oh, yeah. There's a nice little powerful wind gust there. Did you see that? See this little blue area here that just pushed through Mareeba? Yeah, some pretty strong winds in that. Maybe you got it for both. Maybe you got it for heavy rain and strong winds. Yeah, because there's a little bit of strong wind there on the radar, the velocity radar. 60, 70k an hour there, by the looks of that. Yeah, about 60, 70k an hour. So that's some pretty decent wind for Mareeba. So pretty gusty. Probably the north side of Mareeba looked like it got it the worst. Let me just pause that and let me just go in there a bit. It's just the northwestern side out towards Paddy's Green, and what's that little gorge? Granite Gorge. Yeah, that looked like that actually looked pretty serious wind there. Yeah, so I dare say you might have got a warning there for some strong winds, mate, because that certainly was packing some strong winds. It looked like it died a little bit as it got to Mareeba, but Jesus, just there, look at that. Yeah. Some really nice strong winds. West of Mareeba is where it did its best work, just there, around Paddy's Green. Yeah, that's where it did its best work. And then sort of come through, gusted through Mareeba, and it's now heading out towards Cairns. But it is sort of looking like it's gusting out a bit. So yeah, I can see why they got you a severe weather warning there. Innisfail, we've already talked about Innisfail and the Innisfail region, and we've talked about the potential for heavy rain today, tonight, into tomorrow, with showers and thunderstorms turning into rainy messes again, like today. And then on Monday, we talked about the low tracking north and northeast. So we've already done a sort of deep dive into Innisfail Rochelle, so you'll have to go back and have a look at that, mate. Driving from Mission to Cairns tomorrow, how much rain? Probably not much in the morning, but then in the afternoon, we're probably looking at the same thing that we got today, right? So same, very similar type setup compared to today. Maybe even more rain tomorrow than today in the Mission Beach area. So let's have a look. What do we got on radar right now? Right, good on you, Nitso. And we'll just go out a little bit so we can get Mission Beach. Yeah, so there's a fair bit of rain there around Tully, Cardwell, Mission Beach area right now. You can see very, very slow moving as well, and some storm activity. And look, to be honest, that's sort of what we're expecting to see tomorrow as well, right? So very similar type setup to tomorrow for the region. There it is. Yep, very, very similar. Very similar to today, tomorrow for the mission. So lots of rain. But we might not start all that active. So you can see there, 4 a.m., 10 a.m., there's not a hell of a lot going on, right? It happens at lunchtime and it happens all of a sudden, and then bang, she's on all afternoon, and then all evening, and then all night, all right? So, yeah, lots of rain coming tomorrow for that entire section. So take care on the road, be prepared for a bit of a slow trip, especially if you're not going early in the morning. All right, Deborah, best $32 ever. Thanks, Deb. Hi, Nitzo. Do you think, Tony? Hi, Nitzo. Do you think Mackay could be in for some good rain? No, I do not, Tony. Sorry to disappoint, mate. I don't see Mackay getting good rain. I see Mackay getting showers for the next few days at least. So there'll be some nice rain coming from those. But, mate, nothing that's going to fill a tank for you. So that's what I'm expecting for the Mackay area. Just shower activity, mate. So. And look, peaking shower activity, let's have a look. I think I've done Mackay earlier, and we talked about the showers sort of peaking. Oh, no, we did the Whitsundays earlier. So showers for the next couple of days around Mackay. Monday, probably the peak of the shower activity as the low develops and pushes offshore. And then maybe a little burst of showers on Thursday when we get that really strong southeaster coming through. But as you can see there, mate, we're not all that interested in that area, eh? There's not much happening. The only time where we get interested, potentially on the weekend, if that low moves further south, and only if that low moves further south. If it stays up around Cairns, Cooktown, we're not all that interested for the Mackay area getting big rain later on down the track. All right, folks, I'm going to see, I think that's all. Hang on, no, we've got a couple of late ones. Liv, flying into Cairns on Thursday the 8th and staying in Palm Cove till the 15th. Oh, Palm Cove's a very well built place. It's not gonna fall apart on you, mate. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of rain and you're gonna have some strong winds, but I don't think you're gonna be in any sort of danger. Place will be built really nice. I've stayed there. It's a very nice place. Palm Cove. Have I stayed at Palm Cove? I've stayed at a resort. Is Palm Cove the resort? Because I've stayed there. You'll be fine. And they won't, if there's any reason that they feel that a Category 1 or 2 system is going to be, is going to be any sort of danger to you, they'll move you somewhere else if they need to. They'll have plans in place for that. I wouldn't stress too much, mate. Just be aware though, it's going to be windy and rainy, right? So just, it's not going to be the best vacation ever for outdoor activities, but yeah, you're going to be safe. Has any of this offshore cloud dropped the coastal water temperatures? It's dropped. So Stephen, someone asked this the other night. So rather than, because I'm about to knock off, rather than show that again. So what it has done, it hasn't dropped the temperatures per se, but what it's done is it's decreased the positive temperature anomalies, Stephen. So instead of the Coral Sea being 1 to 2 degrees above average, which is what it was for basically the whole of October, November, the first part of December, the Coral Sea is now more around 0 to 0.75 degrees above average. So it hasn't dropped the temperatures because the temperatures are increasing because of climatology. So climatology, our water temperatures will increase until, I think they peak around February. I think our water temperatures peak around February or even early March. So the water temperatures will keep rising, but the anomalies, I'm not sure, that might be what you're asking. The anomalies have certainly dropped. So instead of seeing that really hot water compared to climatology, we're still seeing hot water, but it's closer to climatology. So the temperature anomalies have certainly dropped off. So we're not seeing quite as sharp positive anomalies. Righto, folks, I'm off to eat dinner and watch the big bash. Getting ready for the Ashes tomorrow. How good's that? All right, have a good night, And I will talk to you again 2 nights' time. Hopefully we can know whether we're dealing with a cyclone later in the week or whether we're dealing with a low. Monday night, we should know if the systems are moving north, that way, loosey-goosey low, or northeast, possible cyclone. All right, so we'll probably have a better idea of that on Monday. I don't know if we'll know for certain, but we'll probably have a better idea. All right, thanks for watching. Just remember, subscription service, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe if you want to support us. Otherwise, I'll chat to you in 2 nights' time. Keep an eye on all our social media posts. Thanks for watching.